Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Dees, Chair of our National Association of Corporate Treasurers. Thank you for participating in our 2021 National Treasurers Conference and for joining this session on the changing Treasury in the United States. I'm joined by two of our members, Alan Goldblatt, who is Farmer Mac's Vice President and Treasurer, and Daryl Thomas, Vice President and Treasurer at Harley-Davidson. Well, let's get right into our discussion. Daryl, can you start off by describing your Treasury Department and how you've organized and staffed it?
Sure. And thanks, Tom, for having me. And thanks for everyone for participating in this event. So Harley-Davidson has a global Treasury operation, basically operating in 4 locations, with the central Treasury being in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is the headquarters for Harley-Davidson. We also have a Treasury operation in Chicago, Illinois, and we have a Treasury operation in Oxford, England, and Singapore. And from those 4 locations, we cover all of the key operating areas for Harley-Davidson globally. The total team is roughly 20 people, and they're split around some of the traditional Treasury functions that you might expect: capital markets, cash operations, risk management, and AP, AR. And then Treasury has some additional responsibilities that don't fit neatly into those 4 buckets. We're also responsible for all the pension asset management, and we're also responsible for the recommendations with respect to shareholder returns, whether that is through dividends or share repurchases. And we also have the unique position where we're also managing the business continuity for the entire company. So we've rolled that up into the risk management group and have taken on that responsibility also. So that's basically how we're set up.
Great, thanks very much, Daryl. And Alan, can you first start off and just describe Farmer Mac's business and your role in it and how you've organized and staffed its Treasury Department?
Yeah, thanks, Tom, and it's an honor to be here. And I really appreciate everybody who's listening into this panel. So Farmer Mac is a financial institution, and we are created by Congress actually to provide secondary liquidity to the rural America, the agriculture markets. Then that would include broadband and even areas such as wind and solar energy. So the Treasury, and we're domestic only. All of our operations support the United States, and the Treasury team that I run is basically a purely because it's financial institution. I have a funding desk. I have an investments desk specific for liquidity to make sure we have adequate capital and liquidity. I have an asset and liability management team, as well as the cash management or Treasury operations. In addition to that, we work closely with the debt marketing team as well. All told, we have 12 people. We run it's a lean Treasury group for $24 billion of assets that we manage.
Wow, that's terrific. Well, thank you both very much. And as I can see by everybody's background, we've all now for well over a year been locked down, and in many cases working from whatever passes for a home office, and that certainly changed how we relate to our Treasury people. And so maybe if we can start off, Alan, how has it changed during the COVID? How have you been dealing by almost remote control with your people, I presume?
Yeah, sure. The key here is connectivity. Video conferencing is what we live by, and in fact, it's kind of interesting that we are even more engaged, I believe, than we would be if we were back in the office. Because if you think about it, most screens you see everybody all at once. When you have a meeting, as opposed to everyone just directing their attention at the speaker, depending on what your settings are. But it's really interesting that we have this new level of engagement. It's different, and it's kind of puts everyone at an equal footing. The second thing is that we've totally eliminated the paper processing. Before, you'd have one organization would figure out one thing, and you wouldn't act on it until you had a piece of paper, and that has totally been eliminated, obviously, but that's made things much more efficient. And then finally, I believe the teams are even more engaged because because of our video conferences, we actually have more. And I think it's the managing of the people is the key. It's to really make sure that they're constantly engaged, and it goes a long way, that I found.
That's great. Yeah, I think there's a lot. In some ways, there's more personal contact you can have when you see where someone's living. And in fact, in the couch in back of me, I've had to close the door to this room because my dog Winston takes advantage of my being otherwise occupied by getting up on the couch when he's not supposed to. So many of the people I've been on video conferences are best friends with Winston. Daryl, how about you? How have you been dealing with your people by this remote control method that we've been using?
I agree with some of the comments that Alan made. It's definitely been a different type of experience, and I think when we started out down this road, all of us thought it would be a short-term arrangement, and we'd be in this environment for 30 days, 45 days, what have you. No one anticipated that we would be in this environment for 15 months or more, whatever the number is up to now. And so there've been some learnings, right? We've learned that similar to Alan, we don't need a lot of hard copy paper. I mean, we have adopted DocuSign, and that's been good. That's been good. Before, everything needed to be a wet ink signature, and if it wasn't signed, in wet ink, it wasn't good enough. Well, that's clearly no longer the case, and that's a learning that we'll take forward when we go back to the office, because it is definitely more efficient. The biggest challenge I have, a little bit different than Alan, is that while I have really good contact with my direct reports, I don't have as much interaction with sort of the one down and two down and from them, and so I'm much more reliant on them, my direct reports, to manage and stay closer to the rest of the team, because the environment, we rarely have a group treasury meeting. We didn't have them in the past, except for maybe once a year, but I would always see the team in the hallway at different points in time, and those occasions just don't happen today. So my actual physical and video contact with many of the team members has been much sparser than it had in the old environment. So there's a little bit of a lost connection there, but I rely on my direct reports to keep me apprised of what's going on in the organization, and so far it's working well.
Well, thanks. Well, look, I think the job of treasurer and both to head the department and be in the department is generally can be a very high stress job to have. I mean, we've got the responsibility not only to safeguard the company's cash, but to make sure there's adequate funding. Bouncing a check is a bad day for a corporate treasurer. And so yet onto that base level of stress comes the COVID. So as you just mentioned, Daryl, you miss that personal contact with other people in the department. How do you assess the stress level that your people are going through, and try to help manage that in this new way environment we're dealing with?
It's not one size fits all, Tom. I mean, there are a number of people on the Treasury team that if they never set foot in the office again, that would be fine by them. But excuse me, but there are other people who truly miss the camaraderie and the interaction, and the opportunity to kind of learn from other members of the team. There is some of that that's lost, some of that sort of just being in the room and seeing how things get done. Some of that is lost, and so you're going to really have to kind of play it by ear as you kind of come out of this, because now mandating that everyone come back into the office, that's not going to fit with everybody. I mean, I have people who've expressed an interest to move to faraway states, because if I'm going to be working remotely, I can work remotely anywhere. Then why can't I live where I want to live? And that raises other questions about, okay, fine, but then what happens when we want to have a team meeting? Whose responsibility is it to get you to the meeting? Is it the company's cost? Is it your cost? So these are questions that haven't been answered yet that we're truly having to deal with. So I don't know that there's a simple answer. I do believe that it will be some hybrid solution, because I do not believe that anyone feels that everyone needs to be in the office 5 days a week, every week anymore. That we've proven that that's no longer the case, and putting that genie back in the bottle is going to be really tough.
Yeah. Alan, what about you?
Right. Well, it's a hot topic about return to work, and it's not just with Treasury. It's entire organizations. How do you do it fairly? How do you do it in a manner given the new freedoms that a lot of people have had over the past like we said, 15 months. And there's a couple things. There are a lot of stresses that everyone faces, and each individual, obviously, depending on their situation, is going to be different. So, very much as Daryl explained, is like there's not one size fits all. And so, I think just a couple of aspects here that we want to make sure is that the last thing we want to do is add to the stress that's already there with our team members. And how do you do that? The first thing is be very thoughtful about the timing of going back to work, because and whatever that may look like in that hybrid environment, because if you rush it and people are still worrying about daycare and other situations, the last thing anyone wants to do is like I said, add any stress to those employees. The things that we're doing is today, aside from planning for the return to the office, whatever that looks like, is we also try to reduce stress through perks, and perks such as making sure that the environment that people have, like just because you're working at home doesn't mean your office has been set up. So the company-wide at Farmer Mac, actually had given stipends to every employee to make sure that they could buy either a desk or a chair or a new camera or whatever they needed, to work, in that remote environment, because it just makes it easier, or making sure people have other monitors and things like that. In addition to that, we have several all hands meetings by the finance team or by the whole company. And again, it's all web-based video to keep people engaged, and also make sure that they're getting they're getting whatever it makes sense. We have speakers. We make sure that the the employees can have the books that the speakers have written and things like that, so that they can augment things. And finally, I would say that, and we do have fun activities that exist. There's companies out there that run activities for groups all virtually. It's pretty cool and a lot of fun, and you give out prizes and everything. And finally, I'd say the last thing is vacation. Most people have not been able to really take a vacation, but I would say that a true vacation, but taking time away from staring at a screen, for a couple of days a week is therapeutic. And we encourage our team members to do that. And of course, I make sure that my managers on my team lead by example, and I do as well, where I'm going to be on vacation, I'm out of the office, I'm not logged in, and really so that when other people take vacation, they can understand that they don't need to be constantly monitoring things. So all of those things we try to do to decrease stress.
Wow. Well, thanks very much. Well, look, I think the other thing, just to move on from the external environment and how we've been working in that regard to kind of the environment within the company and within the business. So certainly Treasury is a functional department, and there's areas where there's pure Treasury functional expertise that get applied to internal processes that we manage to move money from where it's generated and get it to where it's needed to be deployed. But there's a lot of things that go on in the company, and so it's one of the evolving roles of the corporate treasurer is to be a business partner. And I'd be interested to hear, Daryl, from you, the extent to which the operating people in your company are seeking out your broader expertise. And you mentioned one of the things that you picked up is risk management and that sort of thing. Certainly that's involved very much with the business. In the end, you're guarding against business risks becoming a financial risk. And so how is it working at Harley-Davidson? Do you need to push your way in, or are they asking for your help?
That's a great question, Tom. And it is evolving. I mean, and it's all driven by relationships. You have developed relationships with certain business partners, and they tend to reach out more. But we've had a number of changes in our senior management. And so some of those relationships, especially in the COVID environment, aren't nearly as strong as they were prior to COVID. But that said, there's nothing like a pandemic to raise the profile of Treasury and stuff. So, as we sort of had to shore up our liquidity and make sure that we had the resources to manage through, not knowing at the start of this how long it was going to last. The Treasury team became very strategic, not only with our business partners, but with the board, and making sure that our plan was sound and executable, and so, but it's still evolving, Tom. I mean, because a lot of times Treasury is brought in at the end, and not where we should have been brought in. And therefore, when we're now saying things that need to happen or should be happening, it's viewed as sort of slowing down the process, right? And so we have to overcome that hurdle also. But it is evolving. It's getting better. I think that me being the treasurer for Harley-Davidson now for 11 years has probably given me a little bit of a higher profile within the company than when I started in 2010. That's for sure.
Wow. Okay, thanks, Daryl. Alan, what about for you? Are you being sought out, or do you have to elbow your way in?
Yeah, it's actually a combination of the two, and it's and recognizing it that to avoid the problems that Daryl had mentioned, where you get involved too late in the process. One of the things that I push for is to have regular dialogues with the business lines, on a recurring basis, and we in the Treasury organization explain what's going on in the market and what we're seeing and what's changing, et cetera. And at the same time, we're learning about new initiatives or what's coming in the pipeline from the business lines, and making sure that we don't have new initiatives that that come out of nowhere and hasn't been thoroughly vetted. And what we have, and this is just this natural for individuals to reach out to other individuals that they know best. But typically, what I find is that it's not enough just to go to that person for an answer. It's usually, when you're talking about some new initiative, it involves accounting and it involves other areas that need to be addressed, not just Treasury. And so what I try to do is, with these touch bases with the business, is also have key individuals from the other finance teams also there, so it's not siloed and we're able to manage it. But it is a work in progress, because things still occur that we need to make sure we get quickly engaged and move it forward as quickly as possible. But it's a problem everywhere, because the treasurer in general is not usually the go-to person for a lot of business initiatives. So therefore, we need to assert ourselves, and that's what we strive to do.
Well, thanks, Alan. That's very interesting. And Daryl, that brings up this whole issue of matrix management and leading cross-functional teams, and the way we're increasingly working. And so, on the one hand, Treasury's got one kind of vertical in that matrix of having the functional management responsibility for cash and making sure there's adequate funding and that sort of thing. But of course, in any complex organization, there's a need to integrate everybody else, as Alan mentioned. How's that working at Harley-Davidson? And have you been asked to lead cross-functional teams, or would you hope to be able to do that in the future if that hasn't happened yet? What's your experience?
Well, I have led a number of cross-functional teams. I've also led a number of strategic projects within the corporation. So, as I said, I probably, given my tenure here, I have had the opportunity to do things that maybe a lot of treasurers haven't done. I mean, we've done strategic reviews of businesses that I've led. We have done board tabletop exercises that I've led. And we've done more business operational efforts that I've had the chance to lead. So I've been fortunate enough to have had those opportunities, and I think they've been very valuable in building the relationships that you really need going forward. I mean, without having those opportunities, again, the personal relationships help whenever you need to send an email or pick up the phone or get on a video chat. Those personal relationships still matter. And so I've been fortunate enough to have had a chance to lead cross-functional teams. And, when the opportunity is there again, if it's the right project, I'd be happy to do it again.
Great. Alan, how about for you?
Oh, absolutely. Cross-functional teams is, the way forward. And it's so important, because that's also how, the Treasury teams get more engaged with the rest of the business. And so it's hardly hardly something that doesn't happen, happens, all the time, particularly when we're working on IT projects or larger corporate-wide strategic initiatives. However, the one thing that this brings to mind for me is that there are a lot of managers that are uncomfortable in the matrix type of organizations, or having people on their team all of a sudden work on another team, and they're not really understanding what their day-to-day involvement is. And my only message to those managers is, yeah, you've got to let go. You've got to let those employees that are on your team to learn, other areas, and also keep you informed. But it's sometimes really difficult, for managers to, particularly if you're coming from a hierarchical organization, and all of a sudden you're thrust into an environment where cross-functional teams is the way. It involves a lot of relearning and training.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, one of the things that I'm increasingly conscious of are these generational differences. We're very lucky to have our daughter living nearby, and I now have two grandchildren, one just 7 weeks old now. So we're dealing with these generational differences on that level. But Daryl, you mentioned wishing you had maybe more contact with some of the newer people, one or two levels down from your direct reports. And so these generational differences, do you find that some of the younger people that you've hired have to be motivated and respond to different incentives? And what's your view on that, on how you manage across these generations?
Well, I definitely agree that there are definitely generational differences. My specific Treasury organization doesn't suffer from a lot of that. We have a relatively mature Treasury organization. We don't tend to hire straight out of school in our Treasury organization, so it's mostly a professional hires. So not as much of a challenge from a management point of view. I mean, we do have some younger people, and yeah, they think differently, which is good. We want that. We want that diversity of thought, and they respond differently to requests, to styles. And I hear from some of them about some of the styles that they don't like and some of the styles that they do like. But what I tell them, unfortunately, in a structure like we have, often it is the subordinate that has to flex to meet the style of their manager, and it's rarely the other way around. And so that's something that, as part of your development, you're going to have to figure out, how do I be me, be myself, but also fit within the structure that my manager desires. And that's sort of the counsel that I give them. And it's probably not what they want to hear, but we're not in a position to upend all of the management structures in order to accommodate individual needs. So it's a limited challenge for me, but it has reared its head from time to time. Wow,
that's very interesting. Alan, what about for you?
Yes, this is a topic that is definitely an interesting situation, because I too have children that are now in the workforce, and to learn from them and their perceptions, it really makes me think differently. And so I've tried to turn the equation around. Instead of fighting and forcing certain, ways that, this is the way we do it here, etc. What I try to do is learn from what they're trying to, different people, different ages, groups are trying to communicate, and it's really something that it's important, because just because we used to do it in a certain way doesn't mean it's the best way. And so for me, it's a constant evolution, evaluating, our business practices, our ways of doing things. And sure, there are times where you have to counsel people, no matter what their age or situation is, and it's just important that we all maintain a certain style and discipline, but at the same time we want to be very inclusive, be it diversity, equity, and all those aspects that are also changing the dynamics of the workforce, that we as leaders need to be not only cognizant of, we want to be part of that change.
Wow, very interesting. Well, look, just to wrap up then, some people have noticed that the treasurer position is somewhat unique in that the good treasurer has one foot in the company and one foot outside in these different markets, and dealing with bankers, insurance companies, lining up all the financial resources that the company needs. And so the treasurer has to act as a spokesperson for the company to portray the company's strengths and needs to those markets, to make sure those resources will be available. And we've talked about the whole trend of cross-functional and matrix management. And so maybe if we could just conclude, Daryl, I'll start with you with just a view toward the future and how you think this thing is going to evolve. Will the treasurer be more of a business partner? How do you see us progressing into the future?
Well, I do think that the treasurer will continue to evolve into more of a business partner, and there's a practical reason for that, especially at a company that relies on bank credit support. When bankers want to understand what's going on in the organization, they're not going to be calling the head of operations. They're not going to be calling the head of engineering. They're not going to be calling the head of marketing. They're going to be calling the treasurer. And they expect the treasurer to be able to share with them all of the pertinent information that they need in order to make their credit judgments and credit decisions. So when you kind of lay it out internally that way, people appreciate it. Okay, yeah, you are the face of the company to this critical constituent stakeholder base, which is our banks. And so I'll share with you everything you need to know, because we need to make sure that that critical stakeholder has the information that they need in order to provide the services that we're looking for from them. So that's how you kind of bridge those two worlds.
Wow, that's a very hopeful view of the Treasury function, and I think we all, many of us, share that. So, Alan, what about what's your view of the future? Where is this treasurer role going to go?
Well, first of all, I just have to echo everything that Daryl just said, because he is spot on from my vantage point. How treasurer becomes a spokesperson, for different groups, external, and it's just the treasurer needs to be involved, have a seat at the table at the strategic discussions that are happening with the business, so that they're able to be that spokesperson as well. But I would also add to it is that it's important also to truly understand the business. It's so easy for treasury individuals to really know Treasury and they know all the rules, and be it international or whatever the banking rules are, that's only part of the job. The other part is to thoroughly understand the business that you're in, the industry that you're in, and also in line with that is to have that dialogue with other treasurers in other companies. And that's why being part of various organizations outside of your firm really helps to broaden one's understanding of issues that are out there that a treasurer needs to be aware of and embrace and bring it back to the company.
Well, great. Well, this has been a very good discussion. Thank you both for participating. And Alan, to your point about organizations like ours that give people a chance to share these ideas, I think that is essential. And so I thank you both also for your leadership in that regard. And everyone, please share this with your friends, and we'll also be available in the various event forums that allow exchange of ideas and chat rooms and all of that. So this should be a very good conference. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom, for having us.
Thank you.